So, who are you and what are you doing here at Hellmann?
My name is Hülemeyer and I'm working for the Global QHSE department. So I'm the head of Global QHSE and Sustainability. So QHSE stands for Quality, Health and Safety, Environmental and Energy Management. So I'm responsible for the integrated management system within Hellmann, responsible for the certifications which we gain as a company, and also for our sustainability approach, which becomes more and more important for a company like Hellmann.
Absolutely. And how long have you been working with Hellmann?
So I'm now working for 16 years. For 16 years with Hellmann now. So started with an apprenticeship in 2005. Then I worked for several years in the air and sea freight department in several functions. And in 2011, I joined the quality management. And from there on, it was a topic of enlarging my knowledge, especially to environmental management, and then also energy management, health and safety, and so it goes on and on within the specific department.
Absolutely. And in the past 16 years that you have been within Hellmann, you started with apprenticeship and you came with fresh eyes and open perspective, full of hope. And what have you been seeing the major, let's say, changes that you have experienced and witnessed within the world of supply chain and logistics in the past 16 years?
Yeah, from my personal perspective, what was very impressive is that environmental management and also carbon emission reporting becomes more and more important for our customers. So when we did it in 2011, when we started our carbon emission reporting, it was only for a few customers, especially within Germany, but now it became a global approach, and nearly all of our customers are requesting for it, and it's a big topic in RFIs. So we are really requested to offer more information about our carbon footprint.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a very, very clear trend that we see as the from the end consumer point of view, that it cripples down to everybody who's involved in the world supply chain, that exactly. We need to be more sustainable in every operations that we're actually conducting. But how exactly you're then, let's say, if you would need to elaborate a little further, that what are the reports that you're filling, what goes into them, and just for the audience, that what is really included in your reporting?
Yeah, usually our customers are requesting for shipment-specific emissions, so they really want to know. For example, I have a container which goes from Hong Kong seaport to Hamburg, and from there on to the final destination in, for example, Osnabrück. And then the question is, what are the specific emissions I had with this container? And what is if I change the commodity from sea freight to air freight, for example, or what if we use the Hellmann product of Hellmann Rail Solutions, if we use the Silk Road 2.0. So what does it mean to our emission, and what exactly is the footprint then, and how can we decrease our carbon emission?
Yeah, would you be able to give, let's say, little case, or how you have exactly, let's say, measured the impact that your initiatives have been able to accomplish for the customers in the past years?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so that if you look at that your reporting, and that how you're trying to calculate the impact that you're aiming towards that with the clients, together with the clients, do you have any cases in mind where you've been able to be very successful, an initiative that has been very successful in terms of creating a maximum impact in terms of the ecological impact?
Yeah, so the reduction of our ecological impact or of our carbon emission decreases significantly when we change the transport mode, especially from air freight to sea freight, for example, or when we are able to use rail solutions. Also, when we are able to swap containers from the road transport to the rail transport, that significantly decreases carbon emission. And there is also a big effort if we are able to change to sustainable fuels. So, for example, liquefied natural gas with a high share of biological fuel. And there are also techniques like electric trucks, which we tested in 2018. So these are approaches which we could have to decrease our carbon emission.
Absolutely. And if you would be able to elaborate a little further with your rail network, that how are you now trying to like, is there any strategic initiative of trying to switch more from let's say maritime and aviation towards the rail network of yours, or how big of a role does your rail network play in your future strategy?
Yeah, so rail solution is a significant aspect of our strategic development, especially when it comes to ecological approach. There's on the one hand the rail solutions in Germany on the national network, where we try to swap containers from road to rail. But on the other hand, there is the international context where we have the Silk Road 2.0, when we have the transports from China or from Asia to Europe, which can also be done by train. And this is, of course, an alternative to air freight and sea freight. On the one hand, from the emission side, it's nearly the same than sea freight, but it's faster and it's significantly lower emission than air freight, even if if it takes a little bit longer to go by train from Asia to Germany.
Absolutely. And if we look at the industry as a whole, there is a lot of talk about we have to become extremely ecological. Everybody is pressurized, being able to provide clearer visibility into their impact that they claim to be, having. How do you see at Hellmann, for your role, the biggest challenges are now in the next 10 to 20 years to be able to achieve these very ambitious and necessary targets?
I think one very important aspect is if customers are willing to pay for it, because that's what we also saw in the previous years, that environmental management or sustainability is not for free. So especially when it comes to sustainable fuels, so for example in air freight, the costs are significantly higher if we use biological fuels instead of normal or conventional fuels, for example kerosene. So therefore the question is the customer willing to pay for it? And then we have a good way forward. Otherwise it's quite difficult, and at the moment there is a change in mind of our customers. So the requests for sustainable solutions are increasing, but the question is really will they go for it?
How big of a, let's say, change you have seen in percentage terms, if you're able to share any, that who are willing to pay more for these, let's say, sustainability aspect when you're running their operations or moving goods from A to B? Is there any, let's say, major shift that you've seen percentage-wise in the past 2 years or 3 years?
So the major shift is not in percentage, but it's in the name of customers. So in previous years, these were smaller customers which were focused on specific sustainable branches, and now it's more the big players in business which are requesting for sustainable solutions or carbon emission reduction or carbon neutral transports, for example. Yeah. So that has definitely changed.
And they're actually also paying for that higher price nowadays.
Hopefully.
We'll
see. So there are some who are willing to pay, but at the moment it's a lot of discussion what is possible, and I think we are now at a changing point. Where the demands increase and also the willing of to pay for it.
Yeah.
But what really is the end and the outcome is the very interesting story of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we have, let's say, identified certain trends is when you go to RFIs and RFQs, there are, let's say, an increasing proportion of the questions and the concerns are related among sustainability. However, what we have also noticed is that the prices or the willingness to pay for the same service is actually decreasing all the time. So they want more sustainability and lower prices, which I understandably, I get the point. But now this is a very interesting aspect that you mentioned, that they need to be willing to pay. And we have not been able to identify yet that how big of a portion is actually practicing what they preach. Everybody's demanding it, but are they actually practicing what they preach?
Yeah, nobody knows what will be the cost in the future. So at the moment, of course, if you want to swap to sustainable fuels, there are not that there is not that big amount available for sustainable fuels. So you therefore it's very expensive. But the question if the request for fuels increases, is there also a decreasing of the price, like always, because the more you produce, the less it costs. So perhaps we have the same picture for sustainable fuels. So that is something which lies in the future.
Yeah.
So if we are able to produce hydrogen, for example, in a very cheap way, and in an ecological way by wind energy or solar energy, then of course we have a big effort, and perhaps in the end transport becomes cheaper. But at the moment that is not foreseeable.
Yeah. Is there, let's say, if we take outside of hydrogen and sustainable fuels, what other initiatives you're focusing on at Hellmann right now? And is there any examples, what have you now been able to successfully implement?
On sustainability. So sustainable fuels is one of the most important points, because that is had the biggest effort. On the other hand, we are now created a new warehouse in Bremen. We built it together with a partner, but it's the first building where we use photovoltaics on our own roof. And so this is a new building standard where we try to combine as much or many sustainable facts in one building. So photovoltaics on the one hand, we also use green roof on the office building, and we have intelligent lighting systems within the warehouse. We also have filling station for electric cars, so that they have the possibility to charge their cars there. So it's a new building standard which we created, where we are proud of. So because it's the first warehouse in this context, and this hopefully becomes a blueprint for next building projects.
Yeah, absolutely. If you would now, let's say we sum it up certain aspects that you have been able to describe very well what you are doing currently at Hellmann. What I'm still pondering about and very curious about is, what are now the biggest bottlenecks? Is there? It could be in terms of technology. It can be in terms of the perception of the people, the mindset, the willingness to pay. But is there anything, let's say, more outside of the willingness to pay that are the biggest bottlenecks for you to be able to achieve your sustainability targets?
Of course, the biggest bottleneck is the customer. So if customers are requesting sustainable products, then of course we offer these services, and then they are increasing. If not, then of course there is no bigger change, no increase. But on the other hand, we also have political decisions which are now very interesting, which are coming up. So some political decisions, like what is with CO2 pricing. What does that have as an effort on our business? Who's going to pay for it? Especially if we are using diesel, for example. And of course, there are some other restrictions which have an influence, like it's with the reporting directive from the EU. What does that mean for our internal reporting? How do we have to report about sustainability in the future, and what does customers expect from us from that perspective?
Okay, and if we hear, let's say, take another more, let's say, personal question, is that you mentioned earlier you've been for 16 years within Hellmann. You're still in the industry, and what keeps you going and stay involved within the industry?
So within Hellmann, the most exciting thing is that there is no day like the other. So there are so many changes, there is so many development within Hellmann, and also within the business of logistics, that it's always interesting and always fascinating, and you are never stop learning, and that's a very interesting fact that keeps me staying at Hellmann. And logistics is also always developing, especially due to the customer requests which are changing, and also political decisions which make a change for us. And So therefore, there's always a development, and especially the colleagues within Hellmann, the family is really something which keeps me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing. And then just as a final question is that what we have truly witnessed is that it's extremely critical to be able to combine the strong industry know-how, the strong knowledge that people have, let's say the older experts have been accumulating for decades from the industry. They have seen all the bottlenecks that have been able to, overcome and create efficient movement of goods from A to B. And now we have this young crowd of this huge youthful enthusiasm that is more environmentally cautious, more demanding than ever before. So this balance is very interesting. That what are you seeing are the, let's say, the best practice or ways to be able to make these two, let's say, very different groups of people to be work in sync and to be able to collaborate in a way that we can create an even more sustainable world supply chain.
I think most important is to be open-minded from both sides, because both sides can learn from each other. Even young enthusiastic people can learn a lot from seniority, from people with more seniority,
Yeah.
and other way around. And you can take the best of both and bring it together. And I think that is something which is very effective and brings a lot of effort for an organization and also for a community. So. Therefore, I would always be very careful to speak of the young and the older, or the older people, but make a mixture of it. And if the mixture is right, then it's a benefit for all of them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.